Hey, welcome to What's Brewing special social media YouTube edition with Joe Sixpack. I'm Glen Macnow, taking a little break. IPAs are the world today, but it wasn't always that way.
It's true. I mean, they become to dominate the whole scene. IPA is actually a style that's fairly old. It goes back to the 1700s.
Really?
Yeah, it was developed as a beer that could be exported from England to India, thus India Pale Ale. Back then, of course, they didn't have jetliners. We had to do it by ship, and so the beer could last longer because it had more hops. It could help preserve the beer. And that style of beer was, around in England, and it actually spread to America. And right here in Philadelphia, we were making IPAs in the early 1800s.
Was anybody drinking them?
Sure. I mean, ales were consumed. It was just considered to be just another English style beer, really, though. It was not like this great, holy grail of beers.
Okay.
But, so it existed for a long time. It faded towards...
Right. When I'm a young man and I'm started to drink, I don't think I saw IPAs anyway. Everything was about lagers and, they took the hoppiness out.
Exactly. They dumbed down the beer to make it less hoppy, less bitter. And, that's the way it was until the whole sort of craft brew revolution began. And we can thank Fritz Maytag at the Anchor Brewery for bringing back the IPA.
To you, Fritz.
He brought back Liberty Ale in 1976, I think it was. Anchor Liberty Ale was the first sort of modern IPA, very distinctive with its use of Cascades hops, which became sort of the dominant flavor. And so for the very beginnings of the craft beer world, from like say the 1970s, 80s, 90s, into the 2000s, we basically had just sort of two styles of IPA. One was this American, very hop forward, and then the second was the traditional English style of
we
IPA.
get to actually taste one now?
Yeah, I'm
Good.
getting wet here, or I need to get wet.
Standing around without a beer, what am I doing here?
So the English style, which is sort of not, the original IPA from Victory from Yards would have been considered to be an English style, and this is sort of close to it still, where there's still a malt base here.
Yeah,
it is.
But it's really nice.
And just to show you the big difference here in styles, the American style, which is typified here by Victory Hop Wallop, which is very, very much about the bitter flavor of the hops.
Yeah, much more. I mean, you get the hops right at the start.
Exactly.
Much more hoppy. Yeah.
So we had those two styles, those two general styles, but eventually we started to see other IPA styles started to develop. Black IPAs, white IPAs, red IPAs, sour IPA, coffee, Belgian style, rye IPA. So there was really almost from...
No limits.
There was no limits. It was just like, we're going to take an IPA and we're going to do these other added ingredients to the IPA. But something was happening around the early 2000s when Dogfish Head started experimenting with the use of how you added hops to beer. They came up with a beer called 60-Minute IPA, in which they brewed the beer with hop additions throughout the entire boil of the beer, and it created a different kind of style of beer. They had the 60, the 90, 120-minute IPAs.
Still all big sellers, right?
Exactly, and so we started to see the brewers tweaking the use of hops within the IPA. But until about 2005, we really still were stuck with sort of basic flavored hops in the beer, sort of typified by the likes of this one, which is the Sweetwater, which has this 420 strain of IPA. It's got sort of a dank, sort of weed-like
420,
flavor. Yeah, exactly.
There you go. We know.
And this really nice double IPA from
that's a nice
this
beer.
one
Yeah,
from
had that before.
Cape May. Double IPAs became a real big thing.
Double IPA, much more flavor. I mean, more flavor, more alcohol content, right? They're usually what, 8 or 9%?
Exactly. 7 up. They'll be, or even more. Right. But it's got more hops, but it also has more malt because they're trying to keep the flavor profile about the same. Anyway, that was the state of IPAs until the early 2000s. But in 2007, we saw the introduction of a landmark beer. It sort of changed everything, and we're going to get into that beer and the whole style or evolution of IPAs.
He's going to leave us with the teaser, and that means you've got to watch for our next episode, where we'll tell you the game changer. Anyway, we want to thank the people at Conshohocken Brewing Company, Bridgeport Brew Pub, for letting us hang out here and drink and shoot this. Cheers, everybody.